Hi, I'm Peter. I'm joined by my colleague Caroline. The iTunes U app allows your students to access all of the great content on iTunes U, including full courses, all in one place. The iTunes U app works on iPad, iPhone and iPod Touch, and it's a free download from the App Store. iTunes U courses are available via the iTunes U app and can include all of your learning materials such as video, documents, apps and books. Students can view a course syllabus, read instructor posts and updates, and complete assignments. They can take notes in an assigned book, video or audio. All of the notes they take in books, audio, video, as well as general course notes are organised in one place in the iTunes U app. Any instructor can build courses with an easy-to-use web-based tool called iTunes U Course Manager. Now I'd like to turn it over to Caroline, who will walk you through how to create a course using iTunes U Course Manager.
Hi, I'm Caroline. Let's get started with iTunes U Course Manager. The first thing to do when using iTunes U Course Manager is to sign in with your Apple ID and password. Next, you'll set up an instructor profile. Your profile includes information like your name, title and institution, a brief bio and a profile picture. Then we'll go to your instructor dashboard. This is where you can see all the courses that you've created. If you wanted to create a new course, you'd simply click on the button that says Create New Course. For the purpose of this demonstration, though, I'm going to go into a course that's already been created. To do that, I simply click on the title. You'll see that across the top of the screen there are three buttons: Info, Posts and Materials. And these buttons correspond with the tabs that you'd see in the iTunes U app for iOS. We're looking now at the Info tab, and there are some pages along the left side: Overview, Instructor and Outline, as well as the ability to add new pages by clicking on the Add Page button. Let's start with the Overview page. If I tap on Edit Course Settings, we can look in a little more detail at the course overview. You can enter information like the name of the course, your institution and department, and you can set a category and subcategory to help users understand the subject area of the course. You can set a level and a language of instruction. There's also the ability to create a course image, which is what your students will see when the course is on their iTunes U bookshelf. Next, you'll see an option to indicate whether the course is a self-paced course or an in-session course. A self-paced course is a course that students can access any time and work along at their own pace. On the other hand, an in-session course is a date-driven course with a start date and an end date. Those in-session courses also give you the ability to assign due dates or the assignments that you might give your students. This course has already been created as an in-session course with a start and end date. Next, you'll see a brief description of the course. And this is an opportunity to tell students what the course will cover, and also to include some of the major topics and subjects and terms that could help increase discoverability of the course. Finally, you can indicate a license for the course. The license that you select would apply to the course information, like the description pages, the posts, and the assignments. Note that you can assign a different license to any materials that you own and upload to the course, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. The options for the licenses include the 6 Creative Commons licenses, as well as all rights reserved. Let's go back to the Info tab now and take a look at the outline. The outline is a really important structural element of every course. It's going to contain the major topics and subtopics of the course, and all of your posts and assignments and the materials that are attached to those assignments will be linked back to the topics in the outline. So it's really important to have a strong outline for your course. You can type an outline directly into this screen, or if you already have a syllabus, you can copy and paste the text of the outline right onto this screen, and Course Manager will do its best to recognise the tabs and indentations to structure this outline appropriately. Moving from the info page now, let's take a look at posts. Posts are your opportunity to communicate with your students, to contextualise the learning materials, and to give them assignments. If you want to create a new post, you would simply click the Add Post button. For this demonstration, let's take a look at a post that's already been started. And to do that, I'll click on the blue arrow. The first thing you do when creating a post is you'll select one of your outline topics to associate the post with. So here we've selected cells. Next, you'll see that there is the opportunity to create a message in the post. So you can create a brief title, kind of telling the student what learning objective you're going to be focusing on with this post. And then there's an area for text where you can give contextualization, and you can help the student understand where they are within this learning pathway you're creating. So you could include instructions, maybe some questions for them to keep in mind as they're doing the assignment that you're giving them. And so a good post will kind of help the student understand where they are in the course. You can also give assignments with your posts. And assignments are really opportunities to link in all of the great learning materials that you'd like your students to interact with to those learning objectives and major topics that you set out in the outline. You can see here that we have 2 assignments already associated with this post. If I want to add another assignment, I can just tap on this plus sign at the bottom of the screen. This first assignment, Read Textbook Chapter on Cells, has a due date associated with it. And so if I just tap in this field, a calendar will pop up and allow me to select a due date. That works for my in-session courses. If I were creating a self-paced course, there would just not be a date control here. The power of these assignments is that you can attach materials. And to do that, you just tap on the Attach Material button. There are a number of options that display when you tap on Attach Material. The first is Add from my computer. And you would select from Add from my computer if you have a file that you'd like to share with your students using the iTunes U app for iOS. A best practice here is to just ensure that you have the rights to distribute the content that you upload to your course. The next option is to enter an iTunes store link. When I tap on that option, you can see that there's a little help field that tells you how to find a store link. You would use this option if you wanted to incorporate any apps into your course, any iBooks textbooks, or other books on the iBook store. Or some of the fantastic education content that's on iTunes U. When you find the content you'd like to include, you tap on the drop-down arrow and select Copy Link. And then that very easily would bring the content right into your course. The next option is Enter a web link. So if you have some web-based content that you'd like to assign to your students, you simply paste in the URL and they'd have seamless access to that content. I'm going to select the last option here, Choose from My Materials. What this option does is it brings together all the materials that you've already associated with this course, as well as all the materials that you may have associated with other courses, so that you can very easily reuse content across many different courses. The textbook that I'd like to use in this course is E.O. Wilson's Life on Earth, which is in my materials list. So I'm going to click the plus sign and add that textbook to the assignment. You'll see now that since we've added this book, the link to a chapter option is activated. What this means is I can actually select one of these topics from the table of contents. Then when my students actually tap this assignment in the app, it will open up the book right where they need to start reading. Let's take a look at Whenever you add a video to an assignment, whether it's an iTunes U video or a video that you've uploaded to the course, you'll see that in this case, the start and end timecode control comes up. What this means is that if you have an hour-long video that you're linking to or that you've uploaded, but you only want your students to view a small excerpt, You can put in a start and end time code so that when the student taps on the video from within the app, it will start playing right where they need to pay attention. Another great thing about posts is that as soon as you create a post, any student who is subscribed to your course will get a push notification that there's a new content available to them, whether that's a new post, an announcement, or an assignment. The next tab is Materials. And so this is just a listing of all the different learning resources that you've added to this course that you'd like your students to use. The Materials tab is a great place to manage this content, and also you can do some great customization here. A best practice for content that you upload to the course, as well as for any web links that you bring into the course, is to give your materials a user-friendly display name. And to do that, you can simply mouse over the item in your materials list, then tap on the I button next to that material. Then you'll see an edit option, and here you can very easily change the way that this file would appear to the end user. This is also where you can indicate a particular usage license for this content. So, if you'd like to give one of your pieces of material a Creative Commons license, or indicate that it's all rights reserved, you can do that here. After we've done editing the course, we might want to share it with our students. And so to do that, we're going to click on this button here on the far right, which is where we can actually manage the enrolment for our course. At the bottom left of the screen, there's a Share Course button. When I click that button, it's going to bring up both an enroll code for my course and a shortcut link to the course. So I could send either this code or this link out to my students, and then they'd be able to access the course on their iOS device. Once you've shared your enroll code with your students, you can manage the enrollment on this screen. You'll see the list of students who've requested access to your course, and then you can either approve or block the students. There are several resources that can help guide instructors as they move forward with using iTunes UCourse Manager. Resources include guidelines, a great support site with lots of documentation, some communities where you can learn from other teachers who are using iTunes UCourse Manager. And all of this content is available on the iTunes U Support site. For more information and to get started using iTunes UCourse Manager, visit apple.com/iTunesU.
Now that you've seen how to create a course using iTunes U Course Manager and how amazing content can be integrated into your own courses, we wanted you to hear directly from instructors and educators who are already teaching courses using iTunes U. Each of them will share with you an overview of their institutions, the technology they have in place, and then share a bit about the teacher and student experience when teaching with iTunes U.
Hello, I'm Neil Carmona-Vickery. I'm the head of e-resources and e-learning at John Monash Science School. I teach emerging technologies and senior school media. John Monash Science School is a co-educational senior secondary government school that specialises in teaching science, mathematics and associated technologies. It is named after Australia's most famous soldier, Sir John Monash, who was a man of wide-ranging intellect. The school was founded in 2010 and is the result of a partnership between the Victorian Government and Monash University. John Monash is located in a purpose-built facility on Monash University's Clayton campus in Melbourne. The school seeks to continually experiment with a range of new technologies, learning space design, and pedagogy in order to pioneer new ways of learning and teaching. We actively encourage teachers and students to use portable and mobile technologies to access and gather information, then design, create and present solutions. In the 2012 school year, we introduced the iPad. We previously had a one-to-one PC tablet program, but we decided to switch to the iPad because it was more affordable and portable. For example, it had cost a parent $2,400 to buy a PC tablet versus only $708 for an iPad plus AppleCare and an iPad case. Also, and rather more importantly, we were amazed by the types of educational apps available for the iPad. These apps allowed our teachers and students to use amazing resources that enable them to make the most of the learning opportunities that our school provides. For example, during our stargazing nights for our subject Quarks to Quasars, you'll see students use interactive astronomy apps to identify the planets, stars, and constellations that they can see through their telescopes. Being in charge of the school's learning resources, I wasn't so much interested in creating traditional spaces like a school library. Instead, I was interested in providing our 640 students with connectivity so they connect from wherever they wanted to. For example, they can access resources such as Melbourne City's library ebook service and our school's ebook library and digital video services. Beyond the compact form factor and great battery life, as a teacher, I find the iPad allows me to start the lesson on time because it responds instantly. I can walk around the learning space with the device. It doesn't limit me to be in the one place. I can guide small groups of students to resources and demonstrate from the device itself. I can be at their side or walk around. The workflow and usability of the iPad within a learning space and amongst students feels very natural. For students, they use the iPad as a camera, a notebook, diary, or reference library when on incursions to the Australian synchrotron or on field trips to the beach as part of their marine biology class. We want to teach our students to work effectively as individuals, in teams, and we've found that iTunes U facilitates that need. I started using iTunes U in August 2012 when Apple opened the iTunes U to K-12. I was aware of how universities had been using iTunes U courses to deliver learning content to iOS devices and jumped at the opportunity to do the same thing for my school. I also saw iTunes U as an opportunity to share our innovative courses with learners across the globe, as we don't believe in confining learning within physical boundaries. Plus, this will also raise the profile of John Monash Science School in Australia and beyond. We have a number of courses in iTunes U. The best example is the Digital Dojo course. It is a 7-week course that forms part of our Emerging Technologies curriculum, and it's pitched at Year 10 students. 210 John Monash students are currently enrolled in this course, and our aim is for the course to increase student media literacy skills while improving their awareness of the online world. For example, while a team of students will be creating a music video on cyber safety for primary schools, another team will be creating infographics related to effective online communication. Another example of an iTunes U course is referencing at JMSS, which is a short course guiding students on how to reference expert work in their assignments. As a teacher, I'm particularly concerned by the levels of plagiarism in students' work and believe that it's important to teach them how to improve their academic reputation and sense of respect for other people's work. This iTunes U course equips students with the skills to do the right thing. Both courses aim to improve student resourcefulness, their relationships with one another, and encourages them to be authentic authors. iTunes U changes the experience of teaching because it requires you to be explicit about the scope and sequence of the course. It helps me, as a teacher, to be better at staying true to the objectives of the learning outcomes I want my students to achieve. It also assures us as teachers that it's okay to allow students to work at their own pace during class because they have the instructions and resources on hand. Like a learning management system, it allows the teacher to create meaningful associations between instructions and digital resources. Additionally, teachers can be assured that students who have subscribed to the course will automatically receive notifications of new posts on their iPad. It's quite nice to know that a majority of my students will have looked at the new material before coming to class and that they're better prepared. From a more pragmatic point of view, I spend less time photocopying course outlines, assignment sheets, checklists and handouts. Once it's in the course, I know that I can reference that resource anytime I need to. I don't have to remember to bring heaps of hard copy resources to class. It's also great because I can link and reference other people's online resources, whether they are apps, iBooks, textbooks, multi-touch books, podcasts or videos. Value is placed on the selection and construction of a course rather than only on the creation of course content. Lastly, what I personally like is the idea that somewhere in the world, the course that I've developed may benefit another teacher or another student. iTunes U allows teachers to publish outside their organisation and provides them with a global platform on which their course can be published, marketed and critiqued. So you might ask, what does this mean for my students? The experience for students changes dramatically. Locating resources that are relevant to their lesson or activity is easier because iTunes U requires teachers to arrange resources in a way that simplifies the student interaction with the digital environment. No resource is more than 2 clicks away. My observation is that students are more on task. They're more likely to help one another out during class. And if I'm not immediately available, because they can quickly direct one another to instruction. I've never had to ask why a student hasn't brought their iPad to class. Students love their iPads, they're quick to use, and the iTunes U courses are working well for them. So, if you're a teacher who wants to get started with iTunes U, I'd recommend you download some existing courses to your iOS device. Explore the structures of different courses and how other educators have leveraged the structure of the app, how they may have used prior content, their own or others, and how they've framed instructions and assignments. Getting a framework in place that suits the learning outcome you want to achieve is the most important piece of the puzzle. Have a play. Create a course and see how it works on the iPad. The Digital Dojo course, which I've developed using the iTunes U framework, brings together a selection of apps, PDFs, documents, presentations and digital videos. Because iTunes U presents the material in a very attractive manner, I don't spend lots of time formatting instructional material in the posts. Instead, I turn my attention to providing clear, concise instructions or guidance. I'll give you an example of how I structure one of my courses. This year I've used a challenge-based learning framework. CBL is an engaging, multidisciplinary approach to teaching and learning that encourages learners to leverage the technology they use in their daily lives to solve real-world problems. I was using a project-based approach last year and I found that the work students were creating was somewhat homogeneous, uninspiring and lacked creativity. There was no teamwork, ideas were borrowed and the projects were only created for the purpose of handing in an assignment. In comparison, I believe that the challenge-based learning framework significantly improves on the project-based and inquiry-based models of learning. It encourages students to develop questioning skills, to work in teams, to present solutions that make a difference, and to reflect on the whole process. iTunes U allows me to guide you to the most appropriate resources for an activity. I can continue to be their guide even when I'm not right beside them at that moment in time. Some learning management systems can be very hard to learn or navigate, whereas iTunes U is an interface that is consistent between one course and the next. Students can expect to see information on their teacher, an outline of the course, posts with instructions and resources. There are no surprises in terms of where things should be located. I believe that it's because of these features that iTunes U allows students to focus on their learning. When I create assignments in my iTunes U course, I keep in mind that they have to be challenging, because we learn best when we do something meaningful. The best assignments are those that require us to do something purposeful, something new, something exciting. Importantly, it has to be something that encourages students to work in teams. So, this has been my journey as a teacher with iTunes U, and I would strongly encourage you to start your own.
My name is Amanda Casper. I'm here also on behalf of my colleague, Professor Stephen Craig, and I'm here to share part of our story for creating our Core Concepts in Chemistry course that's now available on iTunes U. So a little bit about myself, Steve, as well as Duke University. Steve has been on the faculty since 2000, and since this time, he's been actively involved in undergraduate education, both for the introductory chemistry as well as the organic chemistry sequences. For myself, I've been involved in developing undergraduate curriculum since fall of 2011. In addition to that, I've also worked on the undergraduate organic chemistry laboratories as well as teaching. Duke, as many people know, is a private Research One institute located in Durham, North Carolina. We are home of the Duke Blue Devils, and we have approximately 6,500 undergraduates as well as 8,200 graduate students from around the world pursuing degrees in a number of highly ranked schools or professional programs. Duke, both as a whole and within the Department of Chemistry, promotes a culture of public engagement and knowledge in the service of society that is interwoven with education as well as research. Technology is obviously an integral part of supporting the university's research as well as educational missions. Many of these projects are supported by the Office of Information Technology as well as the Center for Instructional Technology. CIT in particular, as well as their staff, are incredibly valuable to the instructors as a way to combine their expertise in technology and pedagogy to help instructors find innovative ways to use technology to achieve and/or enhance their teaching goals. Together, these offices play a key role in Duke's digital initiative, which has the goal of helping students as well as faculty use new and emerging technology to support teaching and learning. A great example of one of these newer technologies is, of course, using an iPad in the classroom. While Steve did not mandate that students access materials strictly through the iPad, we've noticed that a number of students can benefit from using them in the classroom because they're able to review the material at their own pace, freeing up more traditional classroom time for more intense, higher value group activities. The materials that are currently available on iTunes U have been used since fall 2011 for when they were first introduced to a small group of honors introductory chemistry students. Since that time, the course has been expanded and utilized this semester for a class of upwards of 120 students. Looking at our structure for the course, we began first by creating learning objectives for each unit. In addition to that, then we searched for open online resources that could support and/or enhance these learning objectives. In the case when we couldn't find appropriate materials, we often turned to creating these materials in-house. Each of these units were then supplemented with examples of real-world chemistry relevant to the material at hand. In some cases, we also included sample questions as well as chemistry apps. The reason behind a lot of this is we knew there were a lot of great materials already in existence for introductory chemistry courses. The idea here was to really bring together the best of the best to support a core chemistry course and for these materials to evolve with the needs of the instructor as well as the students. In addition, we ultimately also wanted to see if aggregated resources online could be just as effective as a traditional lecture as a form of delivery content. If you look at our materials list, you see we have over 500 items available. We wanted to include a diverse set of materials, including video, audio, PDFs, web links, chemistry apps, as well as animations for students to appeal to a wide variety of learning styles. You may notice that many of the materials and their content overlap, but they also complement each other. Oftentimes, they can emphasize different aspects of a particular learning objective. It also offers students a variety of sources to refer back to when they're reviewing the material for the course. Our basic approach to the assignments as well as the materials on iTunes U are we wanted to find engaging materials that were available to students as an alternative to the more static textbooks. The variety of materials assembled for each learning objective offers students a number of ways to break down the material. Overall, since implementing these changes within the course, we've received positive feedback both from the instructor, Steve, who is intimately involved in the teaching, as well as the students who are involved in the course and using iPads in the classroom. My best advice to instructors who are looking to develop a similar course would be to develop a game plan early on. Decide what the scope of your course will be and also what type of materials you may wish to include. Structure by learning objective and be organized with your materials, both external as well as internal resources from the start. Ultimately, don't be afraid to mix and match materials. For a given learning objective, the most effective online material or resource may not be what you would have used for a traditional classroom setting. Ultimately, the best piece of advice would be to be creative, create engaging materials for your students as well as the instructor, and have fun.
I'd like to encourage you to go to the iTunes U app from your iPad and download and explore these courses. These are great examples created by teachers who are already teaching courses using iTunes U and will allow you to see what's possible as you begin to think of ways you can integrate iTunes U into your classroom. All the courses you subscribe to will appear in the iTunes U app on this beautiful bookshelf, alongside their iTunes U collections. And when you and your students want to discover new courses, simply tap on Catalogue to browse over 1,500 courses and other great content that's available today.
Thank you so much, Neil and Amanda. That was very interesting and gave us a great insight into how to create iTunes U courses and how easy it is as well. And also thanks for giving an overview of the institutions. It really helps a lot to understand the context of how you use courses in this scenario. So we have had a number of great questions coming in from the audience. Thanks very much for sending those through. If you still have questions, keep on sending them in, please. Use the chat box you have on your browser window on the right-hand side, and we will be screening those in the next 15 minutes or so. So let's go straight into the questions. Question number 1, here it is. Is it possible to enroll more than 50 students on a single course? Our year group are around 200 students. So just to reiterate, there's basically, 3 different things you should know. So number 1 is there's private courses, and I as an individual can apply for an iTunes U course manager account to create those private courses. So that just means I am responsible to create the login, I am putting together the course, and if I do that, there is some limitations, such as I can only create up to 12 courses. I can invite up to 50 students for each of those courses. And in total, I have up to 20 gigabytes of storage available for my content. So if you want to go beyond that, there is a possibility for an institution, so for a school or for a university, to apply for a so-called public iTunes U site. If they do that and they get approved, you as an individual could then get affiliated to this institution. So again, just to reiterate, if your institution or school or any institution you're in touch with accepts you as an affiliated course creator, then all the limits I mentioned before, they would be disappearing. Courses as you want and enroll as many students into a private course. And you could also then decide to publish the course on an iTunes U public site. The next question is, can non-profit organizations also create courses on iTunes U? As you may have seen on the iTunes U site, we have 3 different sections. So we have one section which is for universities and colleges, so it's for higher education institutions. We have a so-called K-12 area, so this is more for primary, secondary schools. And then we have a third section which is called Beyond Campus. And within that, we have a number of non-profit institutions, non-profit organizations. We're working, for example, with museums such as the Tate. We have the Victoria and Albert Museum. We're also working with entities such as the Royal Opera House, etc., etc. So you find a number of non-profit institutions and organizations in there, and a number of them have already created and started creating using iTunes U Course Manager. So please, if you are a non-for-profit organization, such as a museum or similar, then you are able to apply for an iTunes U public site. That's absolutely no problem. The next question is, how possible is it to see the names, or how is it possible to see the names of users subscribed to a published course? So again, just to be clear, so again, there's two different ways of putting a course together. There's a private course. Within a private course, you invite individuals to join the course, and as an instructor or creator of the course, I have the possibility to accept or reject those individuals, and I can see them by their Apple ID, basically. If you have a public course which is published on an iTunes U public site, then you don't have this ability anymore, and you do not see the names or any Apple IDs of individuals subscribed to the course. So there is a privacy mechanism behind that. We as Apple, we're not allowing instructors to see who is subscribed to a public course. But what you do see is the number of people subscribed. So you have an anonymous, basically, number of the people who have subscribed to your course. The next question is, how do you recycle or copy a course in order to use it again next semester or the next year? So that's a very good question. I think we have covered that in a way or form during the presentation. But just to reiterate, so if you have created a course, there is a way to duplicate the course. So I, as an instructor, for example, I'm teaching, I don't know, my course this year. So this is a 6 weeks course. I'm teaching that, and I want to make that available for the class next year. So what I'm doing is I'm just duplicating the course, and then I can invite, if it's a private course, I can invite students again next year. The beauty of doing so is that, for example, if you have already posts within the current course, they would be put automatically in draft mode in the next year. So again, all the posts which you have posted in a course, they would be automatically put in draft mode. So you can then choose to publish them at your own pace, basically. So that means you can literally rerun the course live for the next year or next semester. The next question is it possible for university IT staff to edit, modify the templates teachers use to add course information in Course Manager? So it's a bit of a tricky question, I would say. So there's no direct way of administering the Course Manager basically backend for the individuals. So even though they would be affiliated with the university or with the institution, it still means that the individual is responsible and under control of the Course Manager environment itself, also on the posts and everything inside there. The only thing to mention here is, for example, if the course would be published, the individual would be requesting the public site manager to publish a course. So there's a way of, say, gatekeeping before the course would be published. So the manager or the administrator of the public site would always be able to release or to hide a course basically from being published or before it's published. But there's no way to basically edit or modify the templates as such. The next question is, will you go through the steps from the heading to the end of the course? I think we have covered that pretty well in today's webcast. Again, the webcast will be available for you on demand, and maybe the easiest is to just sign up for an individual iTunes U's Course Manager account with your Apple ID and just give it a go yourself. I think that's the best way of finding out how that works for you. We have another question here. Is there a quota to the amount of content that you have that you add? So there's no quota as such. As I said before, if you're an individual with an iTunes U Course Manager account, there is a limit of 20 gigabytes or 12 courses in total. If you are an affiliated iTunes U Course Manager individual, then there's no limit as such. So there's no limit in terms of storage or number of courses you're creating. The other interesting thing to mention here is, again, this all reflects for example, the 20 gigabytes limit, it just concerns the material you are uploading yourself. So if you are referring to existing material which is available on iTunes U from another provider as a collection or as inside a course, then this would not count against the storage limits that I've just mentioned before. The next question is, can you create an iTunes U app without having an iTunes U institutional site? So I think the question is, can I create a course basically without having the institution having an institutional iTunes U site? So again, the answer is yes. Again, as an individual, I can sign up for an iTunes U course manager account, and I can create a private iTunes U course, which I can send out to a limited number of audience, basically to, for example, my class. So this is perfectly fine. And again, if you want to go beyond those limits, so if you want to publish a course, if you want to have more students enroll into a single course, so more than 50, then the only way of doing that is to get affiliated with a public iTunes U site coming from an institution. The next question is, should I use the enter web link button if I want to include YouTube video in my course? So just to maybe point out at this stage as well, we have in the meantime updated the iTunes U course manager backend slightly. So in the presentation you have seen that there were two links or two possibilities to put in, for example, a web link, but also an iTunes, for example, iTunes U collection link. We have now combined those two, so there's only one button to press, basically. So even if it's a YouTube, Wikipedia, or an iTunes link, you just put them in the same box, and Course Manager will automatically refer to the content in the correct way. And if you would refer to YouTube video, you just copy the URL, and you would then put that as a web link, basically, or and Course Manager would automatically recognize that as a web link. The next question is, do the students have to buy the books in the bookstore? So I think the question refers to the situation where if I, as a course creator, I have added books from the iBookstore to the materials list. And as you know, there's free and paid iBooks in the iBooks store. So if this is paid content, then the student would need to would have the possibility to buy the content. That's correct. The same is true for apps, by the way. So yes, if it's paid content, this would need to be paid for by the student or by the individual attending the course. This is the next question. Can I link the web content to my organization's Moodle? So Moodle is a VLE, a virtual learning environment, or CMS, course management platform. So we do not provide a direct API or anything to those different platforms. But how people are using iTunes U alongside those VLE or CMS systems is that everything inside iTunes U is linkable through an HTML or through a URL, basically. So if you would go into iTunes U on your Mac or your PC, and if you right-click on an item, on a collection, on a course, you have the option to copy a link, and this is actually an HTML URL. And through that, you could link back from your CMS VLE system, such as Moodle, directly to the course content or to the assets within the iTunes U environment. The next question is it possible to access an iTunes U course from a Windows PC? And that's pretty much similar to the question, can I access the course from a Mac? So yes, it is possible to access the content if you install iTunes, the iTunes U client on your Windows and on the Mac is pre-installed. Just be aware that there's some limitations in terms of the functionalities and the feature set you have available on the Windows or on the Mac. Again, you would be able to to browse the course, to see the materials within the course. So you would definitely be able to download, for example, a video, audio, or PDF piece. But when it comes to the posts, when it comes to specific items such as iBooks or iBooks textbooks, multi-touch books, etc., or if you want to take advantage of the note-taking feature we have seen before, then this is, best viewed on an iPad within the iTunes U app. But to some extent, yes, you can access the course and the course content itself. The next question is there a limit to the file size of the video embedded in a post? I believe there's not really a limit. I've seen quite large videos coming through, so 90 minutes of video recording in quite high quality. So there's no of, number one, bandwidth of the students, so when they're downloading the pieces, and number two, the available storage on the device itself. So if you have a very heavy basically course in terms of the size of the videos, then you could imagine that students would not be able to download maybe a lot of the assets or the whole course, or maybe more than one course. So please be aware that there's limited storage on the device, and again, bandwidth, etc. So this plays a role here. I think we've answered this question. How do you deal with access to paid content? So again, you can link to paid iTunes content, such as multi-touch books or textbooks in the iBook store. So that's definitely possible. How do you access Course Manager? Again, you've seen the link. So go to apple.com/UK/iTunes U in one word, and you should find the page and with all the information about iTunes U. And on the top of the page, you can find the direct link to sign up for Course Manager account, or if you already have the account, to the login page. And on the very bottom of the page, as an institution, you find the link to sign up for a public site. I will take another maybe 2 or 3 questions. We are almost at the end of this webcast. So the next question is, can pupils access the course from various iOS devices? Yes, definitely they can do that. And actually, if they are using the Apple ID, the good thing is that everything is stored in the cloud, in the iCloud, through the Apple ID. So if they're taking notes or any course subscriptions they have, if they're, for example, losing the iPad, just if they log in onto the next iPad with the same credentials, then they would find all the notes and all these course subscriptions. Everything would be there. So it's kind of like a backup system through the cloud through the Apple ID they're using. And then maybe the last question I'm going to take is, can I create my course on my iPad without the need to use an iMac? So this is a very good question. And again, please do remember that you just need a computer with an up-to-date web browser such as Safari or Chrome or Firefox in order to access the iTunes U Course Manager backend. But at this point in time, you still do need a computer in order to create a course. But this is very good feedback from you, and we do obviously continuously trying to improve the offering around iTunes U. And so we have heard that before, that people want to actually use the iPad to create the course directly on the iPad. So I think we will be maybe seeing that at one point in the future. So with this, I want to come to the end of this webcast, and I want to thank again our guest speakers, Neil, Amanda, but also Pete and Caroline for presenting these things around iTunes U Course Manager. But I also wanted to thank you again for joining us today and for all the fantastic questions you had. So again, this webcast is being recorded and will be available on demand in a few days. So you will be receiving a link. Everyone who has registered should be receiving a link to the on-demand versions. And if you have registered to last week's webcast, you should have already received the link to the on-demand version from last week. So just to remind everyone, there will be the third part of this web series next week, happening on Thursday, May 2nd, at the same time, so 4:30 UK time. If you're joining us from mainland Europe, that will be at 5:30 in the afternoon, Central European time. So please do join us if you have time next week. And with that, I want to thank you again for joining us today, and I'm wishing you a great day.